Hello again, everybody. Robert here with A to Z Smart Home. And yes, as you can see, it is match day. Nashville SC is playing Chicago, so it's always a big rivalry. So go Nashville. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about an issue I had. I've made a post on the blog as well, so if you want to go read that, I'm going to link this video to that blog post. But it has to do with how my Philips Hue lights and my Google Home account and my SmartThings account were all linked together and kind of creating a situation where my Google Home would not recognize my rooms occasionally, and so it wouldn't control any of my lights, and it was very irritating. So the main issue we were having is when we would tell Google to turn on lights or turn off lights or whatever it is we wanted it to do, it would say, sorry, this device isn't set up, or sorry, this device is offline, when actually it wasn't. But I would go into my app in Google Home and it would say offline. So then I would open up my Philips Hue account app and they were not offline. So then I would open up my SmartThings app and sure enough, they were showing offline. So what was happening was my SmartThings account was not syncing with my Philips Hue account. So SmartThings did not see my Philips Hue lights actually online, even though they were. In my Philips Hue account, which is the lights are synced with the hub, they were all online because the hub and the account were all communicating just fine. So obviously there's an issue between Philips Hue and SmartThings. So originally when I set all this up, I used the SmartThings Hub, and this is one of their, I guess it's version 2 hub that they had out. And it is a wired connection, so you had to plug it into an Ethernet cable in order for it to communicate with the network and be able to communicate with the Philips Hue hub. Well, SmartThings came out with the SmartThings Station recently. And the SmartThings Station is basically a hub. It's a ZigBee hub. They no longer support Z-Wave, which is kind of weird, but it does support the new Matter technology as soon as that starts being widely used, which is good. At any rate, the SmartThings Station won't connect directly to the Philips Hue hub. So I had to connect the SmartThings account to my Philips Hue account via the cloud. Yes, this is all very confusing, and this is part of the problem with some of the technology. When Matter comes out and be widely used, I'm hoping this is all going to go away. It's supposed to. It's supposed to resolve all of these issues with these odd connectivity problems and different devices and different hubs and different accounts. You'll have one device that can connect all of your smart devices and manage them and control them. So that day can't come soon enough. So here we are. So now I have the SmartThings Station. I'm having all of these connectivity issues with my lights. So the resolution for that is to disconnect my Hue account from my SmartThings account and then reconnect it back to my Google Home account so my Google Home device can see my Philips Hue smart lights directly. They don't have to go through the SmartThings app and /hub, which is all great. It's a very easy process. I just unlink it in SmartThings and then relink it in Google Home, and there you go. The old ones are removed and the new synchronization is added. However, what you have to do now is you have to manually, one by one, take your devices and put them back into the rooms that you had created in order to organize your devices. So you had living room, you had bedroom, you have kitchen. I had, a room called picture because I have one SmartThings, I have a Philips Hue light strip that illuminates a picture from behind. So I just called that room picture, so that way it's very easy to segregate it and isolate the device. Well, now all of the devices are just glumped in my Google Home account as linked to you. So, it's going to take a little bit of time moving each device back into the rooms. Great. Well, another issue came up that I didn't expect was all of my automations and routines are now broken. So I had to go into the automations again and manually, one by one, reconnect the device to the automation in which I wanted it to automate. Now, if you have just one or two devices, it's not a big deal. But if you have an automation, like I had, like we have one that's, we can say goodnight, and it'll start going through a whole process of turning lights off, turning a fan off, turning the TV off, setting the thermostat correctly, etc. It goes into a whole process of things. So you have to manually add each light into that process again if you want it to control them. So instead of doing that for that particular automation, I basically added my own starter, which says good night. So when I say that, I have it turn off all lights, and it'll just say, okay, turning off 76 lights, which makes it easy, I guess, in that respect. But I did have each individual light added, so that way I wouldn't get the announcement, okay, turning off 76 lights. But that's okay. So now that that's done, I have another problem that cropped up that I didn't realize is the open close sensors that I use on our closet doors. They don't work anymore. Even though I left my Samsung SmartThings account connected to my Google Home account, so that way I could see, like my two Samsung televisions. I have a smart washer and dryer, smart refrigerator, some other components and devices, our phones. We can all see that in Google Home. And those open close sensors were attached to SmartThings because it's a ZigBee device. Well, because I removed my Philips Hue account, the SmartThings account can't see the lights. So I can't set that automation to where when the open close sensor registers open, it turns a light on. So then I had to think about, okay, how am I going to resolve that? Fortunately, I had a Philips Hue motion sensor that I wasn't using. I was able to put it in the closet, and so now that device will trigger the lights coming on, and then I have it set up to where about 15 minutes after there's no motion, it'll turn the lights off. So I've got that automation back, and that's fine. It works well. Again, the Philips Hue equipment, I've never had any issue with it. It just works, especially within its own ecosystem. So when you're taking a Philips Hue device and controlling a Philips Hue smart light, it just works, no problem. They do have a limitation for devices on their hub. Their official limitation is 50. However, I've got 60 plus connected to one hub, and then I have the rest of them connected to a second hub, which are basically my outside lights. So basically all of this problem stems from poor communication or integration between the SmartThings ecosystem and the Philips Hue ecosystem, because that's where the communication kept failing. And then Google, because it was getting its information from SmartThings, saw the devices offline and couldn't control them. So very irritating. So I basically got all of that resolved. And now my lights work as intended. The closet works as intended. But now I have two open close sensors that are basically useless because there's nothing else in the SmartThings ecosystem that I want to control with an open close sensor. So, I'll leave them up there. Hopefully, maybe one day they can, start working. The problem is that Google Home actually sees the device. However, it won't let me use the device as a starter, because when you create an automation in Google Home, it has a starter, whether it's a command, whether it's a device that registers a movement, or whatever the case may be. So my intention was leave the SmartThings connected. I could still use that device because Google Home sees it as a sensor, but it, for some reason, won't let me use it as a starter for the automation. Again, it's very confusing. And this is part of, some of the negatives, I suppose, with this whole smart home situation. And I know it seems like I've been kind of like telling all the negatives about it, but I just want to get some of these issues out of the way so you can understand that it's very, very important to plan and prepare ahead of time before you implement, because going back and changing it after it's already hooked up and working the way you originally configured it can be really problematic, because you make one change and it affects 15 other things, and some things you didn't even know is going to affect. So the planning process is very important and can actually save you a lot of time and frustration as you move forward down the road and adding new devices, new sensors, new lights, whatever the case may be. So now that I have all those issues resolved and everything's working, I went ahead and took those smart plugs that my wife had purchased. I think I spoke about those in a previous post. But those are all working great now. And she has bought these scent diffusers. You put like oil in it, and it heats the oil and is fragrance. Smells great. Anyway, she wanted to be able to control those with Google Home so we could turn them on and off without having to worry about like going to bed and leaving them on. So I created a room called diffusers, and I added more of those smart plugs. So now I have 4 diffusers in a diffusers room, and Google Home will turn them all off when I have our goodnight command or our goodbye command or whatever the case may be. We can tell Google to turn them all on. We can tell Google to turn one of them on, and it just works. It works perfect. It's, again, those are the kind of things that when it works, man, it's like super convenient. And that's the whole point of it, is you want to create convenience, not create frustration. And I'm trying to really, make you understand that the planning and preparation part, how important it is to prevent the frustration. And then it just is enjoyable. And when you come home, you have your automations running, you have your sensors that turn lights on. It just makes things so much easier. I'm sure you're probably wondering, though, why I actually switched hubs if my original hub was working fine. The SmartThings Station they came out with here recently is a much smarter and more versatile device. It doesn't require a hardwire Ethernet. You can connect it to your wireless. It also is a QI wireless charger, so you can charge your phone on it while it's sitting there on the table. And I have put mine on a table next to my chair, so if I'm watching TV, I can just put my phone on the charger and let it sit there while I'm not needing it, and it can charge. It also has a convenient button on it that will actually trigger the Find My Device in Samsung. So if you have a Samsung phone, you can push that and it'll actually register the Find My Device, and it'll alert you to where your phone's at. So that's kind of cool. So it has a lot better features. It's more functional in that you can put it anywhere in the house you want. It doesn't have to be right next to your router or your ISP device. You can put it anywhere you want, and it just works. So I highly recommend the SmartThings Station. Of course, I highly recommend Philips Hue devices and their hubs. And of course, the Google Home works flawlessly with the Philips Hue account. So when all these things are working as they are now, it's just great. I don't have to worry about the frustration. So if you have any comments or questions, please drop them in the comments section below the video, or you can go to my website, www.a2zsmarthome.com, and shoot me an email. And my social media, all my links are on my webpage for the social media. So I really appreciate you watching, and if you could give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, that would be awesome. Kind of help get the channel rolling. If you find this information helpful and you want to see more, or if you have some suggestions, if you want to see something else covered, please let me know. I promise that I'm going to start giving you some ideas on how to configure as opposed to just what goes wrong. But I wanted to make sure that you understood that you got to plan it out. You got to have the preparation. That's just the way to do it. So we'll see you next time. And again, thanks for watching.